Delivering a well-executed death scene that's satisfying and memorable is a lot harder than it might seem, and so it's perhaps little surprise that so many films, even otherwise great ones, have struggled with it, much to viewers' frustration. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 recent movie deaths everyone hated. Number 10, Batman and Supergirl, The Flash. The Flash is a wild movie for many reasons, but the strangest, most cardinal sin it commits, well, that's killing off both Batman and Supergirl not once, but twice, and more to the point, actually letting that final death stick. See, after they're killed in the final battle with Zod, most people watching likely assume that the Flash will simply travel back in time and save the two superheroes. And that assumption would be half right, as the two versions of Barry do indeed travel back through time to bring Batman and Supergirl back to life, only for them to again be killed, with Supergirl again being slain by Zod, while Batman succumbs to injuries from battling one of Zod's giant goons. Ultimately, Barry is forced to appreciate that the pair cannot be saved, and are fated to die every time he goes back in time, and to the surprise of many, they actually stay 100% dead for the rest of the movie. Now, this is an oddly depressing fate for Batman in particular, given how extensively the marketing focused on the nostalgic appeal of seeing Michael Keaton back in the role, and how initially he was supposed to come back in Batgirl and apparently future WB movies, but this was all before James Gunn came in. And to be clear, the issue isn't that he died, more that his arc felt entirely unfinished in this movie, and that goes double for Supergirl. In fact, the suddenness of their exits makes the fact that the two were originally supposed to reappear next to Barry at the end, only for this ending to be changed when Gunn and Co came aboard, all too obvious. It's clear their resolution was just chopped up the movie. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think this is wasted potential for Michael Keaton, and do you still hold out some hope to one day see him again in the DC universe? Number 9, Jacob Toretto, Fast X. Now, any death in the Fast and Furious franchise has to be prefaced by the fact that mortality has always been completely devalued in this series by the sheer number of characters who have either come back from the dead or survived injuries which would kill any normal person. But Jacob Toretto's laughable sacrificial death in Fast X really took the cake here. Jacob's goofy road trip with his nephew Little B is one of the movie's more entertaining subplots, and confirms that John Cena is far more entertaining as comic relief than the self-serious brute that he was in the previous Fast movie. But after allowing Little B to be kidnapped by villain Dante Reyes in the third act, Jacob decides to atone for this failing by using rockets to detonate his own car, flinging it into the path of other cars driven by Reyes' goons. Yet the sacrifice just comes off as a little bit silly and unnecessary, even for this franchise's standards. I mean, wouldn't Jacob be a more valuable asset alive in actually trying to rescue this character? I don't know why I'm even getting wound up about it, because let's face it, you'll probably be back in one of the next movies. Number 8, Annika Kyoko, Scream 6. Now for something a little bit different, as this is a death that we were actually supposed to hate and get furious over, because Mindy's likable girlfriend Annika in Scream 6 did not deserve such a drawn-out, brutal death. In her death sequence, Annika, who has already been gravely wounded by Ghostface, attempts to escape the rampage by climbing across a ladder balanced between two apartment windows, only to get caught short when the killer grabs the ladder instead. Before Annika can make it all the way across, Ghostface violently shakes the ladder until she falls from it, hitting her head on the dumpster below, which kills her instantly. What makes this death truly stick to the ribs, as they say, though, is the prolonged focus on Annika's fear and suffering before she's helplessly thrown from this height. Her pained cries of "I don't want to die" make her one of the most agonizing and upsetting deaths in the entire franchise, and is a huge testament to the performance at the heart of this scene. Number 7, Kang the Conqueror, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Given that Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania was hyped as the true reveal for the Marvel Cinematic Universe's next big bad Kang, many fans were left infuriated that the supervillain was killed off by movie's end. In the climax, this version of Kang is seemingly obliterated when Ant-Man and the Wasp drag him into his ship's multiversal power core. For many who understandably expected Quantumania to establish Kang as a ferocious, Thanos-tier antagonist moving forward, having him be defeated by the heroes seemed like an odd decision, especially as another variant, He Who Remains, already died in the Loki series. So basically Kang is 0 for 2 years before Avengers The Kang Dynasty has even been released. Now, of course, Quantumania's mid-credit scene introduces us to a whole council of Kangs, and evidently the character's entire hook is that there are theoretically millions of versions of him out there, and even then it's likely that this version may come back as well, but all the same, it's still underwhelming to see a version of the supervillain dispatched with such ease, and ensures that the MCU will need to put in some serious legwork to make fans truly accept any version of Kang as a real, legitimate threat to everyone. Number 6, Yaz Khan, Extraction 2. Midway through Extraction 2, hero Tyler Rake and his team, consisting of Tyler's partner Nick and her brother Yaz, are raided, and the intense high-wire action sequence climaxes with Tyler and company being extracted, via chopper on top of the city's DC towers. But just as Yaz is about to board the vehicle, he's shot in the back by the villain. Tyler pulls the character aboard as they take off, but within moments he dies from his wounds, all while our devastated heroes can only watch helplessly on. And given that Yaz was developed into a likable character with a distinct personality in the sequel, it was a legit shame to see him killed off. This was amplified by both his sister's pained reaction and the fact that the villain only learned the hero's location in the first place because his deeply stupid nephew Sandro foolishly gave it to him. Number 5, Billy Batson, Shazam, Fury of the Gods. It's rather fitting that the absolute non-event of a movie that is Shazam, Fury of the Gods concluded with a fake-out death scene that not a single person watching actually bought. Now, to be clear, Billy Batson does indeed die for real at the end of the superhero sequel, sacrificing himself to defeat the villain by overloading the wizard's staff with electricity. Except the momentary, emotional mourning for Billy that follows feels completely hollow because anyone over the age of 10, and that's being generous, watching this scene surely knows that it's a mere matter of minutes before he's brought back to life, and that is precisely what happens. The makeshift funeral held by Billy's family is soon enough interrupted by Wonder Woman, with actress Gal Gadot clearly shooting the scene an entire continent away from her co-stars, who uses her powers to fix the staff and resurrect Billy. From the unconvincing nature of Billy's temporary demise to Wonder Woman's woefully forced cameo, complete with jarringly inappropriate use of her iconic guitar theme, the whole thing falls totally flat and ends the movie on a desperate whimper. Number 4, Marianne Creed, Creed 3. Now, in complete fairness, melodrama has always been part of the Rocky franchise's DNA, though Creed 3 ended up overstepping a little bit with the needless tacked-on death of Adonis Creed's dear mother, Marianne Creed. Marianne, a character who's been with the Rocky franchise since the very beginning, albeit played by 3 different actresses across her tenure, is said to be suffering from health issues, namely a recent stroke early on in Creed 3. This effectively neon signposts her imminent demise, and indeed, Marianne passes away at the end of the second act after suffering yet another stroke. Though the scene is superbly performed, don't get me wrong, it nevertheless feels like an excessive piling on of emotional baggage to make Donnie's final clash feel that much more fraught. More than that, Marianne's death comes across as a little bit rushed and ultimately glossed over as the third act ramps up. And most damningly, are we really supposed to believe that Donnie wouldn't at least get a phone call from Rocky after his mother passed? I mean, it's not like Rock has ever experienced a loved one of his dying before a fight, right? Number 3, Lila, Teefs, and Flaw, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Another one we hated and we were supposed to hate. James Gunn certainly pulled no punches in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. For, while all of the Guardians do surprisingly make it to the end of the movie in one piece, Rocket's devastatingly bleak backstory is tailor-made to upset everyone in the audience. In flashbacks peppered throughout the threequel, we meet Rocket's fellow test subjects created by the High Evolutionary: the Otter Lila, the Walrus Teefs, and Rabbit Flaw. And of course, it's a mere inevitability that the trio will die, as is brutally revealed later on in the film. When Rocket learns that he and his friends are imminently going to be incinerated, he stages an escape from their confinement, which unfortunately ends in tragedy. As they prepare to flee, Lila is shot dead by the High Evolutionary, and after the gunfight that ensues, Rocket turns back to find Teefs and Flaw also shot to death. It's completely harrowing, as it absolutely should be, but that doesn't mean audiences were emotionally prepared to see these adorable anthropomorphic animals grimly slaughtered. Number 2, Sharon, John Wick Chapter 4. After Lance Reddick's Continental concierge Sharon received a beefed-up, more action-centric role in the third John Wick film, many fans were excited to see what would be done with his character in the recent John Wick Chapter 4. This only intensified with Reddick's untimely death just a week before the movie's release, yet in a spectacularly unfortunate case of bad timing, Reddick's role in the film ends up amounting to a mere insignificant cameo. See, the character appears in John Wick 4 for just a few minutes in the early going, where he's shot dead as punishment for Winston's failure to execute John. Obviously, it's nothing more than an unfortunate coincidence that fans had to watch this character die on screen mere days after the actor playing him unexpectedly passed away. But even ignoring that real-world element, it felt like this character deserved better than being unceremoniously offed mere minutes into the movie. Before we go on to our number 1 though, just one more spoiler warning, because we're about to jump into details regarding Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which at the time of recording is still in cinemas, so we thought we'd give you an extra heads up. Okay, number 1, Mutt Williams, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. When a 5th Indiana Jones movie finally entered production, fans were curious whether or not Indy's son Mutt would be featured at all. Few would have been surprised if the new film simply decided to flat out ignore Mutt's existence altogether. Yet, prior to the release of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, director James Mangold assured fans that Mutt would be addressed in the movie, and it was ultimately in a way that few could have ever expected. We soon enough learned that Mutt has died since the events of the last film, with Indy later emotionally revealing that he died in the Vietnam War after enlisting to piss off his father. Now look, I need to clarify with this. I don't think anyone, including myself, is out there mourning Mutt the character and wanted to see him back in this movie, but nevertheless, it felt like a needlessly dour outcome, with some saying that it saddled Indy, historically a breezy character without much time for moping, with too much emotional baggage. It ultimately felt a bit too much like Mutt got the Poochie died on his way back to the home planet treatment, when the character could have easily just been off adventuring on his own and not even mentioned at all. In a movie that already lumps Dr. Jones with a few heavy hits, this might have been one step too far. So, that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think about these recent movie deaths, and are there any other ones that got you enraged, either for good or bad reasons? Let me know, and while you're down there, if you could, please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.